Well, hello, everyone. This is Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child and Raising Leaders, Not Followers. And I am so excited to be here. We're going to be talking about 4 steps to raising Christian leaders in your homeschool. And I went through all the webinar registrations to look at the answer to your question on what's the biggest challenge in your homeschool today. And one of the things that was overwhelm, that was the number one thing. I have it right here. Overwhelm, attitude and character, and then a lot of things along the way of consistency and feeling like you're not doing enough. And so I really love this subtitle, Gaining Confidence to Know You're Doing Enough in Your Homeschool. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions along the way, leave them in the chat. I will be doing some Q&A at the end. I may or may not answer your questions in the middle of it, but I will go back and scroll through the chat as well. So feel free to leave those questions. What I want to do today is be able to show you that you can go from feeling scattered, overwhelmed, and worried about whether you're doing enough in your homeschool to actually feeling focused and intentional with your children's education. I believe you can also, with the things we show you today, experience peace and confidence that you're offering the best education possible as you raise your kids to be Christian leaders who impact and influence those around them. So if you're excited, I'm excited about this. And so if you're excited, leave it yes in the chat and let's get going. We are also, by the end of the time, you're going to discover this major shift that moms need to make to go beyond the conveyor belt. We'll talk about what the conveyor belt is, the conveyor belt of schools, and give your children the ability to influence others for Jesus Christ. We're going to talk about the number one area to build in your children year after year that will carry them through life, giving them a foundation to influence others for Jesus and lead their family in the future. And actually, we're to start with young kids. We had some young kids on the video earlier before we got started. The most simple and effective way to inspire a love of learning. This is so simple, it barely takes any thought or planning, and yet super effective in getting your children to love learning. We'll also talk about the single most effective way to develop critical thinking skills that can be used with any subject to encourage your kids to think and make wise decisions. And then throughout the presentation, I am going to share real life examples of Christian leadership education. I hope these will inspire you and help you double down on what strategy you need to use for the rest of 2022. Yes, we're all excited. Thank you, Evelyn and Barbara Jean, for putting that in there. Now, if you stay, and if you need the handout, it is at howtohomeschoolmychild.com, 4 steps handout, and that's the number 4. And it's also in the chat if you can see that. If you can't, then ask someone for that link. If you stay until the end and decide to work with me in raising your kids to lead instead of follow, to lead and impact others for Jesus, I'm going to give you an opportunity to get your hands on a special bonus that I added to my Raising Leaders course. I'll give you all the details at the end of the class. But throughout the class, we are going to have some random winners from the comments. And so we will be picking different comments throughout the class, and you will win a copy of my ebook, Verses and Prayers to Pray for Your Children. You print this out, and each page has, I don't know, 5 or 6 verses on it. Print it out, cut them up, and then put them around wherever you will see them, in the car, in the bathroom window, the kitchen sink, the kitchen table. And then you can begin to pray scripture, and you pray God's will for your children. So we'll be giving some of those away based on different comments that are made. Now, try to reduce distractions as much as possible. Turn off your cell phone unless you're watching on your cell phone. Shut down all the windows on your computer. That actually can cause you to get bounced off the presentation. Close any extra devices, and if possible, shut the door. But I know we have kids around, so that may not be possible. Again, the handout is at howtohomeschoolmychild.com/4 steps handout. All right, we're going to start with some fun today. I want to read a quote from Warren Bennis. I don't know if he's a believer or not, but he says, successful leadership is not about being tough or soft, sensitive or assertive, but about a set of attributes First and foremost is character. So whether he's a believer or not, he sees the value for leaders to have a foundation of character. I would go a step further and to say biblical, godly character is what we want to do. So here's what I would like to challenge you with. I'd like you sometime today or tomorrow to find some Post-it notes and put each child's name on one Post-it note. So you'll have a Post-it note for each child. And then one character quality that you want to work on with them for the rest of the year till December, and then a Bible verse that will reinforce that character quality. You know, our kids are all different, and so you don't need to necessarily be working on the same character quality for each child. And then I want you to put them on the refrigerator, somewhere that everyone can see them. Now, I would encourage you to actually sit down. If you have a John and he needs to work on obeying, you sit down and you talk to him about it. We read that verse. I would encourage John to read that verse out loud every morning around breakfast time. Maybe Sarah needs to learn to be thankful and grateful because she feels entitled. And so we have the one who offers thanksgiving as his sacrifice honors me from Psalm 50:23. So you would sit down with Sarah and talk about that. Whatever that character quality is, do this. And I truly believe there's a couple things. You will become consistent because it's written right there, and you'll watch out for times that he obeys or times that he disobeys, because a child hears 317 negative comments a day. No, 324 negative comments a day and only 17 positive. So it's just as important that we are reinforcing the positive behavior as we catch the negative behavior. And if each child is working on this and reading it out loud, believe it or not, they'll memorize that verse before the end of the year. And this also makes it, you put it on God's shoulders. You know, his shoulders are big enough. And so you are connecting their behavior to what God expects of them. So if you think you can do this and have a little Post-it party with yourself and your kids, put something in the chat. If you already know one of the character qualities, you can put the character qualities in the chat as well, because this is where I think this is just a quick win to have a foundation of character for your future leaders. So put something in the chat if you think you can have this little Post-it party. And in the meantime, you may be going, well, is this really for me? You're in the right place if you're a stay-at-home mom who's homeschooling multiple ages, or a single child who is still having to cook, clean, chauffeur, and all the other tasks required of you. You're following the school model. It isn't working. You're overwhelmed and you need a new direction. Or maybe you're a working mom working at home or outside the home. You're looking for ways to manage your time and give your children the best. Maybe you're a Christian parent who wants Jesus to be the center of your family, and you're homeschooled, but you are stressed out, especially with your kids' attitudes. Maybe you just want the best education for your kids. You heard the word leadership, and many of y'all wrote leaders. When I was reviewing your registration comments that you made, there were a lot of people, leadership, that's what I'm looking for. It sounds important, so you want to figure out if this is for you or not. You are in the right place, or maybe you're a grandma. I didn't change any of them, but you could just change any of those to grandma, because we have grandmas I know that registered. So that is something. Which one of these are you? Leave something in the chat and let me know, and I would be, I'd love to know that, just so I can tailor what I'm going to say according. It could be more than one of these. No matter what describes you, I want you to know that I support you and I have ideas to help you. And I am going to give a ebook. Barbara Jean was the first one. She actually even wrote Joshua, Contentment, and Rachel Tell the Truth. And so Barbara Jean, if you will send me, you can send it in the chat, or you can send me an individual chat. Just send me your email and I will be able to send that to you. I'll have my assistant send that to you as well. So a lot of y'all wrote some really good things about patience and obedience and generosity, whining. Oh my goodness, yes. We got a lot of things. So, and we've got people that are working and stay-at-home moms as well. So let's get started. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Some of you were just introduced to me maybe at Homeschool Superheroes or through an interview. This is my family. I like you to know that my kids are all grown up. I'm not making this up as we do it. We have already gone through this process of leadership education. This is, let me get over here. This is Ashley. I actually was talking to all of them this morning because my phone was in my backpack. I walked up to the little veggie patch down the road to get some fruit and vegetables. And on the way home, it started calling people. I was like, oh, and Gentry kept trying to call me back. And anyway, Ashley got a call too. So Ashley is here. She's married to Jesse. They have Faith and Elizabeth. Ashley was willing to do things outside the box growing up. In fact, when they went to a private school till Ashley was in 4th grade, and then we started homeschooling. And in 4th grade, she had a worksheet that said, why is George Washington a Christian? There was a picture of a church with a few sentences. And she said, I don't know if he trusts Jesus as a savior, so I don't know if he is. Teacher gave it back. She wrote something similar. Teacher gave it back. And this is Christian curriculum in a Christian school. Finally, I said, Ashley, let's just write what the teacher wants. And so she said, he donated the pews, even though we knew that is not what makes you a Christian. She was already thinking outside the box. She also started her own business in high school. She finished her college degree in 1.5 years and went on to get a teaching certificate to teach at-risk kids here in Texas. Gentry is our middle daughter. She is here. She's married to Andrew. They have Landry and Deacon. Oh, this was a while ago. Deacon's standing up and taking one step. That's about it. And we're all going to get together this weekend to celebrate dear Faith's birthday. But Gentry is a natural leader. Her friends just followed her. She played sports with the public school in high school. And as a senior, she won the Bear Award for softball and basketball. Her public school team members and her public school coaches voted her the top award for each of those sports. That people just followed her. Hunter is here. He's the baby of the family. He does something, and he still does this, that I think a leader does. He asks questions. He was not afraid to even ask what a word meant when he was 11 years old in front of his friends. He would raise his hand at the dinner table because Ashley and Gentry were just chitter-chattering all the way, and that was the only way he could get a word in. But that is how he actually, I think he's become a leader as well. And I'll tell some stories along the way. So here's a more current picture, although Deacon's still not very big over there, but he is wandering around. Let me just tell you, we homeschooled for 10 years. We had ups and downs. And if you're having some ups and downs, I can relate to you. I started homeschooling with a haphazard approach, trying to figure it all out between Charlotte Mason and classical and unit studies. What do I follow? And I sort of went through all of them in the beginning. About 3 to 5 years into it, I discovered leadership education, but it was not from a Christian perspective. And so I really needed to do a lot. It spoke to my soul. It was where God was leading us. And so over the next 3 to 5 years, I worked on how do we give our kids a leadership education that is a Christian leadership education. I sort of had to figure it out all on my own, and I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want you to have to figure it all out yourself. And so that is why we've got this class today. One thing we did do to encourage leadership is we encouraged ownership, especially in high school. My kids took ownership. They made choices about their school and the classes they took. Ashley never finished Algebra 2. Gentry and Ashley took astronomy for one of their science classes. Hunter ended up actually the last 3 years in a private Christian school, so I don't have as much to say about him, but he did do things like take a Latin class with a boys' school, and all they did was speak Latin during that hour. They all took ownership. They also had study skills and time management skills. And with Hunter, as freshmen, each one of them on Mondays, I would sit down and plan the week, and they wrote it down. I didn't tell them what to do. We talked about it. By January of that year, they could pretty much plan their weeks. I would only have to check on them throughout the week and make sure they were doing what they were doing. We said they would do. So that is one way you can have them take leadership in their schooling. Now, can you imagine what it would be like to enjoy homeschooling together without all the attitude from your kids, to grow your relationships with your kids and have peace and confidence knowing you're doing enough, to have a clear picture of where you're headed and your kids will turn out okay? Wouldn't it be nice if God gave you those future glasses? You know, you put them on, you look through the future lenses and go, I'm doing this. And when I looked in the future, my kids turn out okay. Well, that isn't really how it works, but we can learn from people that have gone before us to see. And so that's what I hope to do today. I hope that you will go away seeing ways that you can raise your kids to be leaders for Jesus who will influence and impact others for the rest of their lives. Plus, really offer you and your kids freedom in their adult lives and in your homeschool. Freedom for you in the homeschool and freedom for your kids as well. If this is something that would be helpful to you, let me know in the chat. That would be great. Now, some of you may be like me and you want to know where we're going. Let me give you a quick roadmap. We will talk about 3 possible education models for your kids, the 4 steps to raising Christian leaders, the biggest mistakes moms make, and how we can solve that mistake from a biblical perspective. So let's get going. This is a quote from 1909 here in the United States. We want one class to have a liberal education. What is liberal? Write something in the chat. Let me know, what do you think liberal education is? I would love to hear it. I get all sorts of different answers, but what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear liberal education? Because they're talking about students, this person is, and they want one class to have a liberal education. What does that mean to you? And as you write that in the chat, liberal equals not biblical. You know, that's so interesting, Barbara Jean, because yesterday I had someone say secular. And yet, let's look at this word. Liberal comes from the word liberate. It's not liberal conservative as in political parties. It comes from the word liberate, which means freedom. So it's really giving your kids a freedom education so that your kids are liberated or freed from their teacher because they have the tools of learning. They have a love of learning. They can go on for the rest of their life and think for themselves and not be a follower. This person says, we want another class, a very much larger class of necessity, to forego the privilege of a liberal education. You see, back then, they thought liberal education was a privilege. This larger class would fit themselves to perform specific difficult manual tasks because they're on the heels of the Industrial Revolution and they needed workers. They did not need people who could think for themselves. They needed people who would do the things they were told to do. And really, our school system used to give a liberal education, even a Christian liberal education, and we're going to talk about what that is today. But then they moved to a follower education. It took them several decades. I would say maybe the 50s or 60s is about when it really started to kick in. And you can see today, that's why we have multiple choice tests. We have true, false. We just want them to regurgitate information, check off a checklist. Checklists are not bad, but when you're tied to a checklist and that's what equals education, I don't think that's good. I use checklists all the time, but that is not how I judge whether I'm giving my kids education. So who in the world actually says it? Liberal and liberal arts are not at all the same. That's a very interesting quote, and I'm intrigued. Liberal, I would say, was the children's freedom. Thank y'all so much for such great answers. I do think there is freedom because they have the tools to learn, and that's what we used to give our kids instead of just academics. Well, Woodrow Wilson, the president of the United States, he wasn't in the United States, he was president of Princeton at the time, said it. You see, our government was very deliberate in what they did. So let's take a look at how this came about. What are the 3 models of education? The first one is a conveyor belt education. And all the kids start right here on the first stage, and they all learn the same things. They're all tested the same way. And then they get a little stamp of approval, and then they go to station number 2. Station number 2, they learn all the things, they do all the same activities, they're tested the same way, and then they move to 3. And there are 12 stations, and at the 12th station, they get a final stamp of approval, and they are sent to the market, to the job market. That is what conveyor belt education is. It teaches our kids what to think, and it is very successful today. It teaches our kids to follow, not to lead, to be compliant, to get the basics, to get a job. And it uses textbooks and not much thinking skills. The next model of education is the professional education. And this is where they learn when to think. This is where they get a career. They go to auto mechanic school and they learn when your car goes clunk, 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 you do this. Or they go to medical school. And when someone comes in and says, I got this bulge on my neck, what do I do? And you do this. So they learn what to do when this happens. I am not comparing the value of a car to a value of a human being. That is completely different. But there are similarities in that professional education is going after a career to become an expert and then retire. The last one is leadership education. And this is where kids learn how to think. They become owners and ownership. Like I talked about my kids, they took ownership of their education. And these people go on to society to take ownership, whether that's in society, becoming a statesman in society, a politician, maybe a leader in your family, a leader in your community, a leader in business. They use the classics. This is the education that our forefathers had in the founding of the United States. And I know people are across the world. I'm using America because that is where I'm from and I know the most about it. But, and I guess Neville is from France because she's saying it's from France. I actually have quotes in my course. I go into this a lot more in depth and quotes from the UK as far as this type of education and the numbers. But anyway, look at those types of education. Which model would you like for your kids to follow? That would be great. And Neville, I would like to give you the ebook, the prayer ebook. And if you would like that, you can send me a chat message, everyone, or you can send it individually to me with your email. We're giving that out for random comments during our session here. So we've got these three models, and let me know which ones you would prefer. And I see leadership for one of you, Ethlyn. How do we do it? How do we hop off that conveyor belt? How do we get off the ties to that productivity checklist with all that curriculum to complete? What if I mess him up? I'm trying to balance life and family, homeschooling, work, and COVID this and COVID that. You never know what's going on. All the clutter around my home. And then I still need to clean, cook. I'm overwhelmed. And one of y'all actually wrote, cooking is what is my biggest obstacle in homeschooling. Well, I can't come cook your food, but I give you some ideas that maybe can settle your piece here. Let's talk about leadership education as a lifestyle. It is part of your life. We don't want to add something else on top of it. And I think that's really important to note. But then we think, how does a generation who was not mentored in leadership education give this type of education to the next generation? That's you and me. I was not mentored in, well, you may have been, but I was not mentored in leadership education. How do you and I, who know the conveyor belt so well, give our kids a leadership education? All right, this is where we are going to run into our 4 steps of Christian leadership education as well. And so let's just take a look at step number 1. It is what Warren Bennett said, it is a firm foundation of character, and I would say righteous character. And I believe one of the best places to start is with the armor of God, because you get dressed every morning. You don't go outside naked, but do you put on God's clothing every morning? Do you put it on for your family? Every morning, I pray this for my family. About 5 years, I was challenged with that. And I can honestly say, now, when I'm babysitting grandkids, it's short little prayers. Today, I went on a prayer walk and I prayed a lot longer to put this on, because you are under attack. If you're raising your kids to follow Jesus Christ, you are under attack. You have a target on you. It's not on your back. It is on your chest. It is a full-on frontal assault on you. You need to protect yourself with God's weapons. And so I would like to just stop for a second and pray for everyone here that's listening to this, whether it's on the live or the replay, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Father, I just pray for each mom represented, family represented mom here, that we would all put on the armor of God, each person in each of these families, that we would put on the belt of truth, and the truth will set us free, putting on that breastplate of righteousness, leaving our old self dead and buried at the tomb, putting on peace, our shoes of peace, so that we can walk in peace with you, ourselves, and each other. Holding up that shield of faith, faith in Jesus that extinguishes all the arrows the enemy sends our way, and putting on the helmet of salvation, taking every thought captive in our mind to obey you and demolish the strongholds, and fighting our battles with the sword of the Spirit. May we spend time in your word today, and may we pray persistently and in the Holy Spirit. I lift all of this up in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. I think that when we pray this prayer for you, if you pray this every day at the breakfast table, what impact would that have on you? Leave something in the chat. If you pray this, how would that affect your children? Would they know what the armor of God is when they leave their home? If you pray that for breakfast prayer every single morning, I think so. It is something I'm beginning to pray with my grandkids. I'm not there all the time, but when they ask me to pray, I pray parts of the armor of God for them. Next, we want to teach our kids to be a servant leader. Jesus was the greatest leader of all time, and he was definitely a servant. And so we need to look at this. Hunter was actually chosen classroom champion as a senior. You had to play sports and be a leader at your school. And one of his teachers nominated him. Every week, the TV station would choose one. They'd come out and interview that person. And they asked Hunter, what makes you a leader? How do you lead? And he was, oh, I just serve my teammates. And truly, that is how he is. That is his whole attitude. He has grown up being a servant of others. We need to teach our kids to serve others and find ways that you can do that. And then I think we also want to use scripture. God's shoulders are big enough. Put it on him. Make sure your kids know that why we are acting this way is because this is from the Bible, from God's word. We also need to maybe differentiate between God's rules and house rules. God's rules don't lie. House rules, be home by 11 o'clock. All right, because if you put them all together, they don't know the difference, and then they just rebel against all of them when they leave. So we do have a resource called, called Following God Charts. There are 3 of them. They're all different. Each one of them has 6 different character qualities. Times 3 is 18. So each one, they have obey, a verse that you can read with your kids, and then you write what happens in your family when they obey. Disobey, same thing. What happens? This helps you become consistent. You become consistent between you and your spouse. And you've already thought about it. When they're disobeying, you don't have to come up with some, when they're obeying, you don't have to come up with some blessing. When they're disobeying, you don't have to come up with some consequence. You've already taken the time to do this. So that is one way that we can do this as well. So so step 1 is to lead tomorrow, you must learn today. Oh, no. Step 1, I was reading the next slide. Step 1 is firm foundation of biblical godly character. And you are so right, Ethlyn. It changes everything. Confident we are covered each morning. Ethlyn, if you would send your email to us, we will give you one of our prayer books as well. So let's take a look. To lead tomorrow, you must learn today. You want to raise future leaders. What do they need to be doing today? They need to learn. Do they love to learn? What is a love of learning? Leave something in the chat and let me know what you think a love of learning is. As you do that, I'm going to share a story. I took Faith when she was 3 years old out to this farm while her parents painted their home. And we went on, had Easter egg hunt. She was scared to death of these chickens when we got there. She got a pony ride. She held a bunny. She rode a train. She got her face painted. She loved it. And she asked questions. She was curious about everything that we did that day. And that is what toddlers and preschoolers are. They are curious. What's their number one question? Why? And sometimes they really don't know the answer. You have 30 plus more years of experience. So their questions seem simple to you, but they are truly curious. But what do we do when they turn 5? We set them at a desk, we give them a stack of books, and we said, okay, it's time to learn. And we choke out their love of learning. And so I think that is something we really need to evaluate. What are you doing to encourage a love of learning? So step 2 is to inspire lifetime learning. How do we do that? I think there are 2 parts to this. We're going to focus on one during this class. Inspiring a lifetime learning is giving them the tools to learn and inspiring a love of learning. My two questions to you would be, do your kids love to learn? Do you love to learn? Because one of the easiest ways to inspire a love of learning is to model your own love of learning. It's hard work to inspire them and to model a love of learning. Being enthusiastic about whatever it is you are learning, because we need to remember more is caught than taught. Think about it. More is caught. Are you enthusiastic? Do you model your own love of learning? My mother loves birds. And one day Hunter was out at the farm with them and his friend Rachel was there. I bet they were, I don't know, 9, 10 or 11 years old. There was a bird nest in one of their bushes and you could look over the deck and see the eggs inside the bushes. My mom had books. They were checking it all out. Rachel loves birds too. Rachel's mom was a homeschool mom, and she said every time they go to the library, she got animal books, and I let her read all those animal books. I knew that when she grew up, she would probably do something with animals. Her mom gave her freedom to read some books that she enjoyed. Rachel's about 30 years old now. She works for the National Park System in California, in something with birds. I don't know exactly what it is, but her mom's one of my best friends. And so I was telling her that I share that story, and eventually it's like, you need to tell Rachel that too. So I did send her a little card and share that story. But how great. She was inspiring by letting her child make some decisions, take ownership, and lead in their own schooling as well. You may wonder why I have an art picture there. Hunter also did not like art. We went when he was young to the art museum in Houston, and he was like, oh no, not this museum. He was like 6 or 7. Fast forward 10 years, we're in England for a conference that we had to teach. The kids were there, and one day I wanted to go to the National Gallery of Art. The only person in my family that would go with me is Hunter. I share that story because it took 10 years for his attitude to change. Don't expect overnight loving learning. Give them time. Give you and your kids patience and grace. Patience and grace. So modeling and being enthusiastic. And then I told you I was going to tell you one simple daily activity. This daily activity builds relationships with your kids, encourages a love of reading, a love of books. You can use the classics to do this, and it is a read aloud time. We read aloud every morning, first thing before we did any other type of homeschooling. We actually had family devotions at breakfast. Everyone got ready, and then we all met together and we would read aloud. My kids were not perfect little angels. They might be drawing, they may be playing with Legos. They did a quiet activity 2 days a week. They folded laundry, but we would read aloud, and I rotated the books that they were reading. Gentry liked all books. Ashley liked history books. Hunter liked water, Swiss Family Robinson. I was constantly rotating, so we were appealing to each one of their interests. Leave in a chat what one of your favorite read aloud books is. Y'all go ahead and start sharing some. But oh my gosh, look at all those comments. My screen was not moving up. So love of learning, curiosity, hands-on, yes. Beautifully blossoming in each of our children. So leave some comments about maybe some of your favorite read aloud books as well. So step 1 is character. Step 2 is lifetime learning. We're going to move to the older kids now, but step 3 is a personal growth plan. This is more for older kids, but if your older kids have character issues, you need to go back to step 1. I quit homeschooling for 2 weeks and deal with their attitudes and find some activities that will encourage godly attitudes. So, but let's move. Step 3, personal growth plan. We want to set aside a time for learning. For us, that was the morning. We want to file quickly what you learned. We would write about whatever it was we were learning. Keep a reading journal, keep a journal. And then we would apply quickly by telling someone else about what you would learn. And we call this our read, write, discuss process. You see, when our kids, especially in high school, we were all reading the same book. And you heard the word we. I was reading it when they were reading it. When Ashley was in high school, I did not read Tale of Two Cities. I used Cliff Notes, and it was miserable and horrible, and I did an awful job. When Gentry and Hunter got to high school and they were reading Tale of Two Cities, I was reading with them. And then we all kept a reading journal. That's the writing. They had to write one page about what they read, not narrating, telling back the story, write about it. We want to start building those critical thinking skills. You may have to prompt them in the beginning with a, how did this happen? Or why did this happen? Was this the way we should act in the story if you were following God? Or look at two people like, I can't think of their names, but Elizabeth in Pride and Prejudice and Mr. Darcy. How are they similar? How are they different? You can compare and contrast. Those are all ways that you could write about the story. And then once a week, we would have a discussion about that story. And that is our read, write, discuss process. What I love about this is it gives you, Mom, the freedom to read anything. If you're into politics, go start reading all the politic things before the election. If you want to go into the Bible, do that. If you want to do a literature book, do that, or a history book, or a science book, or even a math book. You can use this for all different subject areas. So we're not adding to what you're already doing. We're just using a process to read through it instead of just answering questions. Your kids actually have to interact with the text. And so that's what I love about this. And you get to discuss it. When you discuss it, it becomes more of who you are and you learn more from it. It's just a solid way to really learn the information that you're learning. I think it's also important that we remember we do want to, there we go, close relationship with God. We want to make sure that we are still using this, I would say, from the Bible. You know, if you join a Bible study, usually you go home, you read your Bible, you write about whatever it is, answer questions, do whatever, and then you go back with your group every week and you discuss what you have read and what you have written about as well. Y'all have got some great books. Thank you for sharing. So I think this is very similar to that. And I think it's important that your future leader knows the Bible and learns things like how to deal with people. Oh, I hope that's not my computer about to die. How to deal with people, how to be kind and tenderhearted, how to be free from anger, how to deal with problems. These are principles they can learn from the Bible, and everything we do needs to go through the grid of Scripture. So this is our step 3, personal growth plan. I think it really kicks in around 13 or 14, 15. All right. It's not necessarily something you need to focus on each age level. Character can begin from babies, really, but all through that. And then love of learning can start in preschool ages and go up to junior high and focus on that and the tools of learning. Then let's kick in the critical thinking. Why spend time critical thinking? Because little kids think literally. That is just the way their brain is developed. So let them really get a foundation of whatever subject area and become inspired to love learning in all areas as well. So 1, character, 2, lifetime learners, 3, personal growth plan. But where do you start with all of this? How do we really get started? Charlotte Mason says, and let me know what you think in the chat, what this means. There is no education but self-education. I really like that quote because really, Mom, you cannot really educate your kids if you're not learning yourself. They know if you're just, one reason some kids are frustrated and have bad attitudes is you're just telling them what to do, but you're not really growing and learning yourself. And so they can see the dichotomy, the split between what you say and the life that you live. So I think it's really important that we start with you, which is number 4. That is your education, Mom. You need to start with your own personal growth plan. And then we need to learn to model that personal growth plan. So here's what I would encourage you to do. Choose a classic. It can be a child's classic and read it. Whatever book you're reading out loud to your kids, read it out loud. And then every day, write 1 page in a journal and then discuss it. Share something you've learned with your kids or with your spouse or your friend. It doesn't really matter. Just share something about that book. Do it again. It can be a kid's classic, like one of these, like Little House on the Prairie or Charlotte's Web. Justin Morgan Had a Horse. Y'all got some good books. Do that with the kids. But book number 3 needs to be an adult classic, because you need to go through this process on an adult reading level so you understand maybe some of the frustration or difficulties that your kids are frustrated. You're reading a book on the 10-year-old reading level. It's easy for you to write about it, discuss about it. But if they're 10 years old, it may not be quite so easy. So you need to always be sure, once you've read a few kids' books, you need to move to some adult books as well. And so, so that is really good. Now, I really think this is important. This read, write, discuss. Shelley was one of my students, and she told me she didn't see the value of discussing this. And she said, I didn't like it. I thought you could just read a book and get what you get. But then she discovered that you could read a book, the Bible, movies, any of that, and educate her kids. She said when she went to leadership education, her mindset completely changed, and that she just really appreciated the mentoring that's going through there as well. So 4 steps to raise Christian leaders: firm foundation of godly character, inspire a lifetime learning, and personal growth plan. Start with you, your education. Isn't it exciting to see how this finally comes together? Give me a yes in the chat if you can start to see how we begin at young ages and move all the way to the older ones, but we've got to start with you, Mom. Cherry was also one of my students, and a while back. She'd been homeschooling for about 6 years, but when she found our leadership education, she said there is little to nothing out there with practical application to help moms model and mentor their kids. Because I've been talking more about modeling, but in leadership education, you need to also mentor your children. We spend a lot of time talking about mentoring and modeling. And so I want to read what she said. She said, I felt like a lone horse on a deserted trail. Everyone else I know that homeschools is on the conveyor belt to keep up with the public education counterpart. Thank you for being a voice in the desert that will give guidance to as many lone horses that are headed your way. I read that because it's just such vivid language. And I do feel like sometimes we feel like we are lone horses doing, even in the homeschool movement as well. So, see if any of those really hit you, but I want to make sure we have time to talk about the biggest mistakes moms make. Maybe you feel like Martha when the Lord said, my dear Martha, you're worried and upset over all the details. I'm a type A person. I get it. Like, Mary, what are you doing sitting down there on the ground? We got a whole people that we need to be in the kitchen cooking for. Martha was productivity oriented. Mary was relationship oriented. So the biggest mistakes moms make is, I believe, we become too productivity oriented. We are having a hard time hopping off that conveyor belt and finding freedom in our homeschool and freedom for our children. We are on a checklist mentality. I'm not opposed to checklists, but I think when we put all our identity, our homeschool success in a checklist, I don't think that's good. I use checklists every single day, but I don't judge my homeschool or my business or anything on that checklist. You may be comparing yourselves to other people. Well, let me tell you my 3 R's to help you get off the conveyor belt and off that productivity mindset. First is to relax. Seriously, take a deep breath. Relax, enjoy your children, build good relationships. That's one of the most important things you can do with your kids in homeschool. Build good relationships with them and helping them build good relationships with God. Next, we need to rest, like actually get some sleep. Sleep might be the best thing you can do for your homeschool. Every day you need sleep, and too often we live in a society that doesn't sleep much. But more importantly, or not more importantly, along those lines, rest in the Lord. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. If you are unsure about things or how to handle something, go to God. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. He will show you what to do. So I think that's super important. And then finally, when you feel like life is just falling apart, rejoice. Find something good that's going on. It may just be a hot cup of coffee. It may be the sunshine. It may be like today. I was like, oh, it feels so nice and chilly because it's 50 degrees. It wasn't cold. If you're having a hard day, and one time I was having a hard time, I grabbed a piece of paper and I started writing down everything I could think of that I could be thankful for. And it ended up praising God for his attributes and who he is. So relax, rest, get sleep, and rest in the Lord, and then rejoice. Build relationships. This can give you freedom. All right, if this is something that you could do, put it in the chat and say yes, or tell me which one of these would help you the most, where you are relaxing, resting, or rejoicing. I would like to see that as well. So our 4 steps to raising Christian leaders. Firm foundation of godly character, inspire a lifetime learning, personal growth plan, start with you, your education. Relaxing by far, Neville. Yes, I get that. So at this point, I've got a question for you. Would you like me to help you gain confidence and freedom to give your children a Christian education with leadership skills? And I would like to say the things I'm sharing with you, these process, really does give your kids a liberal education, because a true leadership education that gets our kids to think for themselves through that personal growth plan, and they have to make decisions as they're writing and as they're discussing. I forgot to say that, but keeping that journal and having discussions, it will build decision-making skills in your kids as you ask questions in your discussions. And so this is really a liberal education. I don't call it that, I call it leadership education. But you are growing your kids to be free from their teacher if you follow this process. So if that is something that you want, that Christian education with leadership skills, I see that you've got 2 options. One, you could try to create a Christian leadership education plan on your own, but you do run the risk of being in the same place this time next year with a big open loop and no plan to give your children that better education that you truly want for them. Or option 2, you can 100% commit to focusing on Christian leadership education with a proven plan. If you're ready to build confidence and freedom in your homeschool efforts and follow a proven plan, then I invite you to join me inside our Raising Leaders, Not Followers course. What is that? It is actually a course. It is the only leadership education course of its kind from a Christian perspective. There are other homeschool leadership education, but they are not from a Christian perspective. And this course will show you exactly how to build godly character and lifetime learners who can think critically, biblically, and make wise decisions as they glorify and honor Jesus Christ. And you might be going, oh, that's a lot. Let me tell you a story about Angie Bartas. I met Angie actually a year ago this time, and she was one of my students from the year before. And she had homeschooled during COVID, and she was ready to send her kids back. She said, Carrie, it was horrible. It was a bad year. I was ready to send them all back. But my youngest child had some problems, and he didn't want to go back, and he wanted to homeschool. So she started researching homeschooling, and she came across my course. And she said, I don't really know how I got to you, but it was a God thing. Because when I found you, Carrie, I said to myself, this is the lady I want to follow. And so she started learning from us through the leadership education that real education isn't really all about academics. It's really about God and putting him first as she fulfilled her purpose with God for her life and for her kids' education. And she said, the more you taught, Carrie, the more I kept thinking, yes, this is what I want to do. If I'm going to homeschool, this is what I want my homeschool to look like. And she really told me that really through this course, she went from never, ever, ever wanting to homeschool to actually having a model that actually worked for her and her kids. And she said it just gave her purpose, the content and encouragement she needed to move forward from a homeschool to a homeschool that was effective. Now, I'm going to show you some things, and we're going to go real quickly through this so that we can get to the Q&A. But these are a lot of the things that we're going to cover. And I'm not going to read all of those. You can just sort of skim through those, but how to simplify. And if you don't have an English degree, how to lead a discussion and write about a novel that you've never read before. We're going to give you all the tips that you truly do need. But let's just go through. We've got different modules. Module number 1 is the 5-step formula for Christian leadership education. And this will give you clarity and a path to walk on as you raise your kids to make wise decisions and influence others. This gives you the fast track to being intentional with the direction God wants you to go and to have confidence from kindergarten to 12th grade. Module 2, character is foundational. You'll discover how to encourage the number 1 most important quality a leader must have to influence those around them, even when you're leading your family. Your kids are growing up more than likely to be moms and dads. They will be leaders eventually in adult life. Module 3, inspire your kids to love learning so that you absolutely nail it to make learning fun so your kids don't even know they're learning. I think I've got 17, 22 different ways to do this. And then the tools of learning to make lifetime learners. All people hanging on to that conveyor belt, we're going to jump off that conveyor belt and discover the tools of learning that have been used for centuries, seriously, centuries, back to the Greek and Roman time, that really work. And then we're going to module 5, thinking skills for leaders, how you can help your child write about a book when they have no idea what to write, how you can feel qualified to lead discussions without worksheets, sheets, and textbooks, and even when you're totally unsure of yourself. And then module 6 is how to graduate kids with decision-making skills for life, the 7 secrets to share with your teens so they make wise decisions as adults. The other thing we're going to do is, I know y'all are homeschooling, it's hard to work on this. We have 3 weeks of implementation. So you'll work on module 1 and 2, and then the next week is a break. It's implementation. You implement the things you learn, or you play catch up on the things that you didn't finish. I know life gets in the way, so we want to give you plenty of time to work through this course as well. I lost. No, that's where we are. Rose had this to say. She just said the leadership course helped her teach her kids how to think logically. Some of the things she really liked about it is she liked the real life stories. She told me she's a visual learner. So the printables, she would print them out, keep them in a binder, and now go back. Because I think she was one of my students 2 or 3 years ago. And she said, one of the best benefits from your course, Carrie, is lifetime access. That's right. So once you have it, you have lifetime access. If we upgrade and improve this course and redo the videos, you also get lifetime access to those as well. The value is $197, but we've got some bonus gifts. Help for the harried homeschooler. These are printable schedules, lists, helps for you that you can print out and keep you organized and scheduled. Classic book list. We talk about classics. So we got lots of lists. We've got books in the children. Y'all have already named a lot of the children classics, teen list and an adult list. So you can have books to choose from as well. Lifetime access, I've already mentioned this. This is priceless. And then this is where the whole course began. I wrote this book, Raising Leaders, Not Followers, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. And we've changed it since then. I've edited, updated it. But this is, you get ebooks for each one of these. And so you'll get the Raising Leaders. That covers the whole idea of raising leaders, character building, love of learning, moving to independence. Then teach your children how to think with mentoring. This is independent learning. This is thinking skills, decision-making, mentoring, those type of things. And then I ended up with some of my students from way back. They started sharing things that they were doing. So we compiled them into an ebook, Hop Off the Conveyor Belt, real life tips and tricks from homeschool moms. And this was just, these are real life things that actually happen to help them be able to homeschool with a leadership education. You'll get all of those as well. Now, I do have a money back guarantee, but I'm only looking for serious action takers. You would need to show that you've actually given the course a try before requesting the refund. I do this because I'm not really looking for tire kickers, but true go-getting moms just like you that want to dive in and get results quickly. So if you do the work and you're still not satisfied, show me your work within 14 days of the course opening. So that's showing modules 1 and 2, and I'll gladly give you the refund if it's just not working for you. Holly was one of our reviewers, and she just said there were tons of great ideas in what we were offering, especially when you have several kids. So there are the bonus gifts. There's the course. The value is $266.85. But I know my moms well, and I know that that may be too much. So what I want to do is I'm going to give you some more bonuses. We're going to, each of those implementation weeks, you're going to get me. I'm going to do group coaching and live coaching. And so you can sign up and you can get on a 5-minute hot seat with me, and we'll answer your questions from those, anything in the course. This will help maintain your motivation to complete your leadership homeschooling plan. Quit trying to homeschool and start training for success in your homeschool. So many people are like, I'm trying to homeschool, I'm trying to homeschool. This is a Christian perspective on how you can set your homeschool up for success. It's a session, and this you get instant access to. My friend Meredith, one of our homeschool superheroes, is going to help you raise kids who love to read. Some kids learn to read kicking and screaming. Others learn to read but have no interest. She's going to flip that switch in your kids and raise your kids to love reading. My other friend, Amber, is going to talk about getting control of your schedule and time management and how you can stack your tasks to things you're already doing, like eating, how practical. And then we have this special bonus. It's a VIP ticket to our next event in February. You'll get lifetime access to the entire leadership track, the entire life skills track for this online event in February. You'll also get early bird access, the VIP bundle, which last time it was worth $300 or $400 of paid products. You'll get them for free in the swag bag. So this is an awesome bonus. I sometimes think people might sign up just for this bonus. So that's a bonus. And then today only, this ends at midnight tonight, we're going to offer our student leadership bundle. This is my kickoff session on servant leadership back in 2021. But then a lot of y'all are like, how do we get our kids to make decisions? Here's a book and a video training to help you. And I would encourage you to go through it yourself. And then you can go through it with your children, your teenagers, to help them make biblical decisions. This is worth a lot of money, and I'm sure I could maybe charge that, but I know moms, this is way too much for you. And I know you're also serious about giving your kids an elite education and gain the confidence in the process. The price point isn't realistic over $1,000, so I've decided to slash the price to you can pay $54 for monthly payments or $197 one-time offer. You can go right now if you want to howtohomeschoolmychild.com/leaders, and you can read all about it. But this is a course that I feel like if I don't share it, I'm not really doing a good service to my homeschool moms. These are things that really worked. I've already shown you with my kids as well. Now, if you do pay in full, we have the drama-free mom bundle that you will also get. I was asking some of my founding members from a year ago, what should we offer as a pay-in bonus? And Diane said, I already have that, but I think this is what they need, because Carrie, your bundle, look at that, quickly changed her public school mindset and daily routines to make her family's weekly homeschool schedule run a lot smoother. So you get an ebook and then 3 video trainings. I think one of them's audio. Now, I told you I had a special bonus. If you stick with me to the end and you decide you want to do Racing Leaders, we're going to give a $10 Amazon gift card. And that means if you end up investing right here on the class, what could you do? You could buy a classic book for your kids to start critical thinking skills, or maybe a classic book for yourself to start your own education, a fun learning toy to encourage a love of learning, or buy your next read aloud book. And you're going, books are too expensive. I would look for Dover Publishers. They have lots of things under $10 as well. So that's just a free gift if you sign up during the class. Now, the whole thing there is $54 for 4 months or $197 one time as well. Diane of Classical Scholar, she just told me she worked through this as well, through this whole course. And she just said, especially the ebooks, they are packed full of practical ideas. You need to grab a highlighter because you'll be wanting to highlight a lot of things that you can actually use. I'm all about practical helps as well. Now, I'm not quite sure why you're here today or why you showed up, but I can guess maybe you feel stressed out, pulled in so many directions. You need to simplify your life in your homeschool. Maybe your kid's attitude is driving you crazy, all those screens, or maybe you just saw the word leaders and thought, this must be important. I need to figure this out. I want you to think as we close right now and get ready for our Q&A, why you showed up. I know you see how Raising Leaders, Not Followers will help you bust through all the sticking points that have stopped you from hopping off the conveyor belt of public schools in the past. Your fear of failing your children because you're really not sure if it's going to work. But if you still haven't signed up for Raising Leaders, maybe you have some doubts. I can just create my own plan. I hear you. That's where I was, but it took me years. Years to formulate this plan that I'm offering you. I want you to rest assured that the steps we offer in this course will take you by the hand from kindergarten to 12th grade. Or maybe you're feeling like you just can't spend the money. And I understand, because I mean, economic plans, it is hard, especially in times of uncertainty. Consider this perspective. Let's say you only have one more kid left and they have 3 more years left, and you're going to spend $100 a year over the next 3 years. That's $300. This course is less than that, and I believe will make a lot more, a huge impact, a bigger impact on your kids' education outcome. I promise you that I will walk with you, holding your hand over the next 9 weeks, so you're successful and start giving your kids the education they deserve, so they can think for themselves and make wise decisions as adults. And if money's tight, we do have our 4-payment plan. Or you're thinking, I can't do it alone at home. I get you. That is why we've got the implementation weeks. We want to get together 3 times through this course and actually answer your questions and find out what your questions are. I want to hold your hand and be able to do that as well. So here we are, friends. It's time to answer all your burning questions. You can put them in the chat as well. I want to open it up and ask you if there's anything you're wondering about. And I do want to tell you, I started this for my own kids. And so then the more I started telling other moms about it, I thought, I can't keep it to myself. I've got to share this, and I need to share it in a way that makes sense. I used to bundle it all together, and then you got all this stuff and you were overwhelmed. Then I had a course, but it wasn't like it is today. And then you could just go through the weeks and do whatever on a weekly basis. Now, I feel like I've finally gotten this at a plate that is consumable and not overwhelming, something you can actually walk through and find success, like some of the people that I am spending, like I've shared stories with as well. So if you've got a question, let me know. I've had a few questions turned in as well. Let me just see. And Barbara Jean says, I don't have a good track record for completing things. And that is understandable. And that is why we have the implementation weeks. That is why I want to walk with you. And we are going to just give you bite-sized pieces. Along those same lines, Barbara Jean, someone had asked, how does this actually work? Well, what will happen is next Monday, not next Monday, because on October, I don't have the date written from, I want to say it's October 10th. Your course will start and you will get an email and say, module 1 is in your members area, and you've got all week, just bite-sized pieces to watch. That one actually has 5 videos because it's 5 steps. But that thing, so you watch a video for each one of them. We try to keep our videos at 4 to 8 minutes, so they're short. And then you have your workbook to go along with it, with some exercises that you can work through. So we just give you a little bit that week. And then the following week on Monday, you'll get an email saying module 2 on character is in your members area and you can work through it. And then the third week, hey, it's implementation and group coaching week. And so I want to walk with you so that you do actually finish this course. I don't want you to get something and not actually finish it. So that was a question that I've had that I wanted to make sure I answered, because I understand what you're saying, Barbara Jean. Another person asked, how long will it take to get through your program? And you're probably feeling stressed and overwhelmed, not sure you can do this. Let me assure you, it is doable. If you can block off 3, 4, or 5 hours a week. And that may mean you get up an hour early and work through it. That's what I do when the kids were home. If I needed to work through something, I would get up before everyone else and do that before they got up. So if you can block off 3 to 5 hours a week, you can work through this information. And then we have our implementation weeks as well, where you can play catch up, or you can actually implement some of the things that you are working on. Another question we have is, what ages does this apply to? This is really an overall plan for you to follow in homeschooling, starting with mom to teach you how to get your own education, and then how you can gain leadership skills, and then how you can give it to your kids. Starting character, like I said, baby, preschool, toddlers, we start there, and then we move forward to love of learning in those elementary, junior high years, and then critical thinking and making biblical decisions in the high school years as well. So Another question I just got was, I'm going to be out of town next month. Will I get behind? Not really, because you have lifetime access. So you may not be on, you may have to come back and do a little catch-up work, but you have lifetime access. So you can go at your own pace. And then I had someone else say, what else do I need to buy to see results from Raising Leaders? Really, this is the most comprehensive course on Christian leadership education with step-by-step process for homeschoolers to go from feeling scattered, overwhelmed, and worried to being confident, focused, and intentional, giving your kids the best education possible. So you really don't need to buy any other trainings to implement our 4-step process. Now, having said that, part of our process is using real books and hands-on activities. So you may want to buy some books or some supplies, like from the dollar store, markers and paper and things like that, or a journal. So those would be things, but let's face it, go to the library. You can do that for free and get your read alouds there as well. And so really, as far as learning this and implementing this, you don't need to go buy anything else. You just need to have the resources, like the supplies and the books, like I said. All right, let me see any other questions. Can I talk to my husband before making a decision and still get the bundles? Yes, it depends on how you pay for it. The servant leadership is open through today. And so if you talk to him today and invest in it today, this is Barbara Jean, you get all the bonus gifts. Okay, so let me get this mouse going over here. Where is my mouse? Oh, there it is. Okay, so you get all of this no matter when you buy it. The student leadership you get today if you invest today, and the Amazon obviously is just if you invest right now. Now, I will tell you, we have some surprises along the way. And so we have some more bonuses that we're going to be offering. If you sign up today, you'll get all the rest of the bonuses. Whenever you sign up, you'll get all the future bonuses as well. So that is another thing to consider. So if you want to hop on it, then that would give you even more bonuses. If you do pay in full, you would always get the pay in full. And then I had another question. Do I have to buy now? Well, the doors do close next Tuesday, October 4th. All right. And so, like I said, we have surprises along the way, but taking action now will put everything into motion and you'll get the rest of those surprise bonuses. So I hope that explains it. You got it. Thank you, Barbara Jean. Any other questions? Let me see, because some people are sending like personal ones. Lifetime access. Yes, we do give lifetime access. You're fully supported as well. And I will tell you, for those implementation weeks, all our past students are invited to those as well. Now, whether they come or not, I don't know. But when we launch this again, you'll be invited to further implementation weeks. I have someone that bought this in 2020 and she says, I'm finally ready to start. She's been waiting and just overwhelmed. And so she will be invited, and I will probably will definitely make sure she knows that we are going through this and she can come to those implementation weeks and be able to join us for the group coaching as well. Is your bundle adaptable for special needs? That is a good question. And I had that question about a year ago. There are things that you can do for special needs. Do I have something written out that says special needs adaptation? No. But because we use hands-on activities and repetition and those kinds of things, yes, there are some things you can do. As far as I would say, especially when it comes to the character building ideas and when it comes to the love of learning and the tools of learning, those are things you can do, but you'll need to adapt them for your special needs student. So, you know, one of our things is songs. And I'm a firm believer in learning things through songs. And so that is something I think that you can easily use. I'm just throwing something out off the top of my head for special needs as well. I think a lot of it would too be you one, resting in God, but two, giving yourself this leadership education and then using what you're learning and being able to pass that on with your kids. Because module 1 starts with mom. We need you to know what's going on so you can model and mentor for your kids. I hope that answered your question, Ethelyn, because I'm pretty sure you're the one that said you had 4 special needs kids earlier in the chat as well. Okay, and then I had someone say, what's the refund policy again? All right, well, let's make a deal. I am 100% committed to Racing Leaders Not Followers being the only program you need to successfully kickstart your homeschooling efforts and watch your kids grow in their love of learning and ability to think biblically and critically in the coming months. If you're committed to where each of your kids are, and you work this plan, you work through this plan and actually give it a shot is the biggest thing. I believe you'll succeed. But if after module 1 and 2, you don't feel like this is for you and you've actually worked through module 1 and 2 and show us your work and you say it's not for me, then we will refund it. So, and that is clearly lined out at howtohomeschoolmychild.com/leaders. So you can go back there and read that entire refund policy if you've got a question and not quite sure. Okay, Kristen had the 4 kids and Ethelyn only has 1. Okay. I do think this is adaptable because I am not a special needs expert, but I have interviewed some of them recently for Homeschool Superheroes. And I do think that it is something that you can use. And again, it also depends on, what kinds of special needs. Obviously, the girl I was interviewing is an adult with autism. She has a PhD in psychology, I think. And so she has found ways to adapt herself. And then she uses that with her kids have autism. But I met one of her kids at a book show and I would have never thought that, and so I do think there are things that you can do to adapt that as well. Any other questions before we close? Wonderful. And I will also say, if you have a special needs kid and you're trying to figure out how to adapt it, ask me, and I can ask some of my friends if I don't have an answer for you. And so we are going to be getting together during those implementation weeks, and I hope you will. They're listed in your members area when you join. Put them on the calendar as soon as you join so that you know exactly when they are. If you are from other parts of the world, I found out it's actually a really good time. It's either at 4 or 5 Eastern time, which means it's the evening in Europe and the morning in New Zealand and Australia, because I have people on both sides of the world. And I really didn't realize that till yesterday when someone asked me because they were in Europe. So, so if you're in other parts of the world, hopefully that will work out as well. So, okie dokie. So the course, the bonus gifts, and then the special bonus gifts just for this launch are all listed there. You can go to howtohomeschoolmychild.com/leaders. I do just want to close and say, I really feel like God led me to this. I'm thankful for it. And I'm thankful for the way I see my kids putting this into practice. Hunter's a leader. He's a consultant. He leads teams offshore and onshore. Gentry is a leader. She works part-time at a Chick-fil-A, and she leads the social media team and the catering team. And we're always bouncing ideas on leadership. Ashley runs the children's department at her church. They are all in leadership positions, and Gentry and Ashley are leading their children because they are moms, along with their husbands who are dads. I just share that to say, I see the results of what I did, and it's exciting to see them put it into practice from a biblical perspective. So thanks for spending time with me. I am Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child and Raising Leaders Not Followers. Y'all have a great day.